Funding Marielle's graduation.
It's a lovely war. Who would be a soldier, eh? Oh, it's a shame to take the pay. As soon as the valley was gone, we feel just as heavy as lead. But we never get up to the sergeant, bring the breakfast up to bed. It's a lovely war. What do we want with eggs and ham? We've got plum and apple jam. Right.
The Battle of Cambrai.
It's a lovely war.
The year of 1917 was not a good year for the Allied forces. With the recent offensives not bringing the expected results and progress in the war, the British desperately wanted a win. Because of those offensives, however, the French army had been badly affected to the point that it was unable to engage in useful combat. Britain's main problem was the Germans in northern French territories. The Germans' best achievement so far was taking the French territory of Cambrai and used its railway centers as a main communication port. Without Cambrai, Germany would be deaf and blind to incoming attacks. General Henry Tudor, commander of the 9th Division, advocated the use of new artillery and infantry techniques in his sector of the front. JFC Fuller, a staff officer with the Tank Corps, looked for places to use tanks for raids and presented his idea to General Julian Byng. General Julian Byng, commander of the British Third Army, decided to combine both plans. Julian Byng proposed a complete surprise bombardment Cambrai, France. The main objective of this battle was to gain control of the area and to destroy the Hindenburg Line to weaken German strength in the West Front. He would bombard the Hindenburg Line with hundreds of Mark IV tanks equipped with 6-pound Lewis guns and infantry closely supporting the tanks. After destroying the Hindenburg Line, they would encompass Cambrai. Their plan was quickly accepted by Sir Douglas Haig. The tank and infantry communication was essential, so they would use a series of colored discs and hand signals to communicate new information. The French and British armies had used tanks en masse earlier in 1917, although with considerably less effect. But this would be the first large-scale use of tanks for a military offensive. The attack was led by General Julian Byng, 9 British infantry divisions, 5 cavalry divisions, and 3 tank brigades. The due date for the attack was on November 20th, 1917, at 6:20 a.m. To avoid detection from the German reconnaissance aircraft, the British began moving in at night. The cloudy weather in the morning of the attack only helped the British as it limited German air operations. They sent 476 tanks in all, with 378 in combat roles, and the rest of the tanks were supply and service vehicles. To keep the tank movements a secret, they would distract the Germans using planes. For the initial attack, 8 British divisions were launched against 3 German divisions. The British tanks ripped through German defenses and took 7,500 prisoners at a low cost in casualties. Crushing the barbed wire and decimating the German defenses, they quickly took 5 miles of land, taking a couple villages. The tank victory is short-lived as German General Georg von der Martwitz orders his troops to dig their trenches to be anti-tank, and dug them a whopping 14 feet wide and 20 feet deep. To get past the anti-tank trenches, the British troops would lay a bridge of brushwood over the trenches. This allowed them to go right over the new trenches with relative ease. By 8 o'clock a.m., the main Hindenburg line was punctured. This was a massive victory for the British, but they weren't prepared for the main front lines coming up ahead. Their supplies were running low, and there was a delay in communication. Now that they have broken the Hindenburg line, they had a chance to seize Cambrai. To capture Cambrai, British infantry split into two fronts. One would advance to Boulogne, and the other to Marcoing and Massagnier. They plan on taking control of two key bridges there, then sending the cavalry. They capture the two bridges by mid-afternoon, but as the first tank tries to cross, the bridge collapses under the tank's weight. After finding out about the tank stranded, German General Georg von der Martwitz takes the opportunity and orders his troops to the other side of the canal to form a defensive position. With the constant German bullets, it makes it impossible for the cavalry to cross. This halted the British advance. Meanwhile, at the west, the British troops advanced to Boulogne. While on the way to Boulogne, the British troops stopped at abandoned German trenches to loot for any supplies. This was a big mistake. Their slow advance gives German General Georg von der Martwitz time to call for extra weapons and backup. The Germans prepare for the tanks by mounting armor-piercing 77mm guns on trucks and cars. These guns do major damage to the Mark IV tanks. To get past these guns, they would advance the tanks in a zigzag motion, which makes it difficult for the guns to hit the tanks. Despite the loss of 4,000 British soldiers and 179 tanks, the first day was a tremendous success for the British. They had taken 7,500 prisoners and advanced 4 miles, which would leave them only 2 miles from Cambrai. News got back to Britain about the success, and church bells rung all day in celebration. They had gotten their big win, or so they thought. At night, Germany prepares for the next round. Although they had stopped the British advance at Magnier, Boulogne was still open, and was the last barrier between the British and Cambrai. German General Georg von der Martwitz gathers all available troops from Cambrai and orders them to defend Boulogne. The British were at a disadvantage. They were tired, communication was faulty, and they had lost their element of surprise. The German troops got more reinforcements and their new improved anti-tank weapons. The British soldiers were outnumbered. To get reinforcements quickly, they hoped to end the battle in Magnier and concentrate all their forces in Boulogne. For the next 5 days, there was a raging battle in Boulogne, but neither of the sides were able to break through. By November 29th, the British had been halted after an advance of about 6 miles. On November 30th, at 6 o'clock a.m., the German Second Army, under General Georg von der Martwitz, launched a counterstroke with 20 divisions against the flanks created by the British advance. Their goal is to push back the British troops and to recapture the Hindenburg line, with explosives, aircraft gas, and highly trained soldiers called stormtroopers. The stormtroopers would infiltrate behind enemy lines, causing mass confusion. The British continue fighting, but the Germans are gaining ground at alarming speed. The tables are turning, with the Germans regaining most of the land lost, and the British units getting themselves isolated, and their command structure breaking down in places. With only 63 tanks left, the British cavalry is ordered to disband into infantry. Meanwhile, back in Britain, the people are still celebrating their victory, not aware of the German counterattack. On December 3rd, the British began to retreat troops and supplies under the cover of darkness. This was a risky move, as if the Germans were to spot British soldiers away from the front line, they could have ambushed them and stolen supplies. To make the German soldiers think that the British are still at the front lines, they would shoot flares to make the battlefield look more active. On December 7th, the British retreat is complete. That night, a great blizzard sweeps over the battlefield, forcing both sides to retire for the winter.
Battle of Cambrai.
is officially over. After the battle was officially ended on December 7th, the British had over 45,000 casualties and 179 tanks lost. 11,105 German prisoners were taken, as well as 9,000 British prisoners. The Germans faced a sizable damage to their artillery and defense installations, with over 45,000 casualties. Despite all the casualties and effort, the British ended up only gaining around 2 miles of land, and the Germans ended up keeping Cambrai. Despite the lack of new territory gained, the Battle of Cambrai showed the first large-scale use of tanks for an offensive, as well as the best German counterattack in history. The Battle of Cambrai displayed the power of tanks that would alter future warfare and invented a new method to fighting the Western Front in 1918. The British Army displayed a tremendous piece of advanced strategy. The use of large-scale tanks took the warfare tactics to a new level that also signified the role of artillery in battles. The battle demonstrated that armor was the key to a battle on the Western Front. By breaking the formidable Hindenburg Line, the British left a scar in the Germans on which they would never recover. It proved that the Hindenburg Line was not invulnerable. The Battle of Cambrai highlighted the effective use of infiltration tactics and counter-strategies by both the forces.
The Battle of Cambrai